Okay guys, here we go. Doing a little three-dimensional coloring video. If I was calling this in the kind of curriculum that I teach, I would call this step one of coloring. So what you're doing basically here is you're setting up a color value. I've got a set of Crayola Super Tips. I love these markers. I'm showing you this because I don't want you to think that I'm using like a special set of colors or anything like this. This is something that you can get at your local big box store. You can get it at really anywhere. They sell them at all kinds of different art stores, hobby stores, but they also sell them at Walmart. So probably $15 for this pack, and it'll last you 6 or 8 months, probably, just if you're doing a lot of coloring. So I want you guys to see this. They're pretty cool. I like these colors. I think they work really good. If I was doing some more advanced stuff, I might go in and use some different markers. But for what I need, this is what I'm doing. Just going to use these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to color this three-dimensionally to give the basic idea of roundness and light and shadow. So what I've got here is I'm going to do red stripes and bluish stripes. So it's going to be, I'm going to use these 4 colors. I'm going to use a light red and a dark red, a light blue and a dark blue. What I want to do to start with is I want to kind of use this pencil, and I want to illustrate to you what I would do to make this three-dimensional. You can do this in shading too if you wanted to do this with a pencil instead of marker. It's the same concept. So the idea here, and what I'm going to do, is I'm going to pretend that light is playing from the top of the picture. Anytime you're trying to do three-dimensional coloring, three-dimensional shading, three-dimensional anything you try to do to make something look three-dimensional, you have to determine light source from the beginning. Light source, light source, light source. So where's your light source at? Now your light source could be from the top left, from the top right, from the top middle. It could be from the sides. It could be from the bottom. It's all up to you. You make that decision in your picture. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. They want to learn about shading, but they don't think about the light to begin with. So you got to know light to know where the shadows are. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do really simple light from the top. Okay, so when I look at this picture, I know immediately what I've got here is like a really long, skinny cone, okay? And that cone gets teeny tiny right here at the bottom, but it's curved on itself, but essentially it's a long, skinny cone. And we all know that, or hopefully we know, that when we have a cone, the basic concept of a cone, especially if our light is from the center, is essentially on one half of that cone, you're going to have light, and on the other half, you're going to have dark. So let's say I got light shining from this direction right here. So I would have light on this half here, and then I would reach the apex of that cone's curve, and everything would be dark here. Now in reality, this is your basic shading. I call this equator shading. Okay, so the basic idea is like the equator on our planet. It's the middle point, it's the apex of the curve. So we've got, on this side it's light, on this side it's dark. Very basic concept. On this side it's light, this side it's dark. So when I do this with marker, one side is light, one side is dark. One side is light, one side is dark. So what you have to do is you have to determine, based on this form that we have, where exactly is our equator going to be at. So I'm going to kind of sketch in this curve. Now, it's not a perfect curve. I know that because we've got these like bump ups right here, and also we have to kind of address that when we do our drawing. It's not going to be a horrible thing if you don't make it look perfect, but it is really helpful if you can make this as close to a solid, perfect line as you can get it. So I'm hoping that's showing through on the video pretty well. So I've gone ahead and drawn that, call it apex of my curve. So everything down here is low, it gets higher, and it curves back down again. Okay, so I'm assuming that this is a tubular object or conical object, really. It goes up and goes down. And this is going to be the highest point in that curve. So if I was coloring this for realsies, I would probably not draw this line in, but for illustrative purposes, I wanted you guys to see that line. So I'm going to take a kneaded eraser, and I'm going to make this line as light as I can make it, where I can still see it. And that's just because I want to be able to stay to where that line is. that I drew, but I don't want the graphite to interfere with my pencil, or with my marker, excuse me. That graphite can get with the marker and it can mix up and do some nasty little things. So, all right, excuse me, let's go ahead and start coloring. I'm gonna do the red first. I am an advocate of coloring the light color all the way to start with. You just have to make that decision on where your stripes are going to start. All right, we're back. I just got the blue, the light blue colored. I'm gonna kind of look for any spots that might need a little bit of touching up. But you can see I've got this kind of nice candy cane stripe. Now, a lot of people are gonna be okay with this and they're just gonna keep on coloring the picture like this. But one of the things that I like to do now is go in and add my shading. So again, we've already drawn that central line and I can just see it. I can just see it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at those areas where the light's from above shining down this way. So I'm going to look at that central line and I want to begin to add in a darker red. Now what's going to happen here is this is going to get really dark. It's going to dry lighter than what it would be here normally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to add that as I get up to that equator shading line that we talked about before. And then I'm just going to go through and I'm going to very carefully fill in. I don't want this dark color to get rowdy. But as I get through here, what's going to happen is I'm going to get this transition piece where what's in this area is going to start, it's not going to follow that equator line anymore. As this form begins to turn, it's going to very slowly come up and meet that equator line, and that shadow is actually going to flip-flop sides. So as I begin to flip-flop, you'll see I get over here. When I get back to here, that equator line is going to start back up again, but as that begins to turn off the equator line, you'll see I begin to then start on the other edge and meet back up with it. So something like that. Okay, so now we've got that three-dimensionally happening. What I'm going to do now is go to my blue, and the concept's still the same with the blue. So I'm going to do this and just fast forward probably through the video, but you can see kind of how that's going to begin to change shape, form also. Here we go. All right, so there we go. So there's your basic concept. Now, one of the things that I don't like is I don't like the way that this peels off. So I'm going to use the blue to kind of sketch myself a line that I like better. And now I'm going to go back in with my red and I'm going to meet up to that line, sort of like this. That I like a lot better. So now what we've done is we set up the basic, what I call equator shading. We've got a light side and we've got a dark side. So there's my equator shading. Now here's one little piece that a lot of people aren't going to do either, is I am going to extend the shading and start a gradient idea, a gradient concept, by adding my light color in a second coat. So what you're going to see here should come through fairly well. Is I want to keep this going. So as I do this, I'm going to go through and I'm going to add a secondary shadow with just adding a second coating of my color. Now as I get around here, I'm going to see that same thing begin to happen. As I get a metamorphic form, now it's going to be rotating and changing. Okay, there we go. So with what I've done there, hopefully I'm getting some really cool three-dimensional effects. I can see it fairly well. I like it. I like the way that it looks. When this dries, it's going to look even better. Now, one more thing that I can do from this set, I'm going to grab, there's two grays. There's a light gray and there's a dark gray. From this set, I'm going to grab the light gray. And now, with the light gray, I can show you on that test piece that I had a while ago, that light gray is going to come on and it's going to mix. It's going to show through the blue and it's going to make a very, very dark version of each color. You can see here, I'll kind of do it, you can see the gray on one side, but then almost a very deep maroon on the other. And then here, you can see this is beginning to mix through and it's going to give us kind of a shaded blue color. So hopefully you can see that pretty well. So now what I'm going to do is I can go through here and I got two choices. One of them I can do like a core shadow with. If you're not well versed in shading, a core shadow may not be a great idea for you. But what you can do is definitely go down here and with some very quick motions, you can put like a deep shadow down here that kind of follows everything. So this is fun to do because this really just deepens your color more. And the more layers that I want to put on it, even better. So I want to go through here, and what I love about these colors, these Crayolas, they're normally fairly predictable about the way that they're going to dry. I know that every one of these Crayolas is going to comfortably dry a lighter shade than I'm putting on here, and they definitely, the more and more I use them, the more and more I recognize how well these colors go together. So I'm a really big fan of these, and I think with a little bit of practice, you guys can do some really cool stuff. So as I get to these deeper areas, I'm going to make my shadow a little bit bigger. As I get up here to this deeper area, I'm going to make my shadow a little bit bigger. If you're not comfortable bringing that shadow up real high like that, the more you do it, I think the more comfort you'll have with it, but that just comes with practice, always with practice. So what we've got is this, and then probably in my red area, because I think that's might be a little bit in my red area, I'm going to go through here and I'm going to kind of blend from here to here. So I'm going to go through and do this, fast forward again, and then I'll show you the results. All right, and there we go. Kind of what I would do as my initial coloring setup for a picture. If I was going to do this, this would be definitely where I would start. First layer, as this dries, there's a video that I made that talks about using colored pencils over a marker picture. If you want to check that out, it's a Harley Quinn from Batman that we did. I would definitely think about going in from there and adding those concepts to this to kind of give me a nice highlight through the middle that stays the same, and then blend that out. It would look pretty sweet. So there you go. That's kind of some abstract three-dimensional coloring stuff. Hey, I wanted to do one more add-on to this video. Got a light pink and a dark pink. I've got a floral kind of picture. The add-on that I wanted to do is a very simple kind of what I call like a drop shadow type of add-on. This is one really simple thing that you can do when you do a picture, and I'm not going to be crazy about coloring this kind of directionally on this video because a lot of what I'm going to do is going to be done with the shadow. So I'm just going to go through and color this really fast. I'm going to do two of these so you can kind of see them from different directions. Fast forward in the video, and then I'll stop as I explain things. All right, I've got these two shadows colored. Now I'm going to add my drop shadow. Basically, concept, sun's from above. Objects are blocking light from other objects. So this leaf is blocking light from these flowers. So anywhere on that flower or this leaf or set of leaves is going to block out light, I'm going to do that. And then the same thing's going to happen back here. Same thing's going to happen over here. And this is one of those pictures that's kind of wonderful in the fact that whoever drew this picture originally drew it with shading in mind. So now I'm going to look, and I'm just thinking about concepts of are the petals going to be blocking out light? That'll help a little bit, and you can see just by adding this, it adds a little bit of texture to my leaf, and it's going to add a little bit of depth and shading to it. Even if the shading's not perfectly correct, which it's not in this picture at all, but even if it's not, you can get some really cool textural effects, and nobody's going to be looking at this picture when it's done and going, oh, you know, the shaded in this area doesn't look correct, and blah, blah, blah. They're just going to look at it and they're going to see this kind of three-dimensional shading. And then if you want to go through at the, like what I did in the middle of this video with the candy cane swirl, and you want to begin to add a second layer of your light color and then a second layer of your dark color, and you want to go in with some grays and things like that, that's marvelous too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of the green now as well, and I'm just going to keep it to the light and dark. So I'm going to do a little bit of the green, and then I'll show you a picture of it when it's all done. All right, so here's the basic green. To really finalize this, I definitely would go back in with maybe a darker green, or even a darker, maybe a violet, or again a second layer of my shadow color, gray. I would experiment around and see what I liked. It's about what you like. If you want to do more, you want to do less. It's about what you like. And remember, this is, once you begin to take over this picture, as you color it, it's your picture now. So you're now the second person working on it. So somebody drew this for you, and now you're just going to work on it, and you're going to make this color work. So again, all of this is up to you. All of this is on you. This is your picture. You can do what you like with it. So happy coloring. Thanks for watching. See you guys later.